Hey, welcome back to the show. Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to you. And did you guys hear about Jessica Biel? Yeah, she's apparently she's going to name her kid Batmo. Jessica Biel. All right, I'll show myself out. Today's topic is going to be all about Peekaboo President. So I think that's going to be a good one. See you on the other side.
Break 'em on. This is America First Radio. Patriots, get your ears on because we're blowing the speakers out.
Lefty G. It is time for the Lefty G Show. The only show to get you right. Get ready to get right with Lefty. Your voice taking you down Freedom Road. Now, here's your host, Lefty G.
Let's hit the fucking road!
All right, yeah, that little opening joke was really from my brother Tim. He and I are kind of Batman geeks. We love it. You know, being from Chicago, and of course, as you guys know, Chicago is Gotham. That's the way it was originally presented. And the other part is I wanted to throw out there that we used to watch Super Friends together. My brother Tim was one of the greatest, man. He was a Saturday morning cartoon guy, and he would get us all up, and it was great. Those were the memories. That's what it was like to grow up as a Gen Xer. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, to the topic for tonight, man. We're here to talk about the Peekaboo President, and it's a topic I was really thinking about for yesterday's show, but I wanted to kind of make sure I had all my thoughts straight, and of course, really kind of thinking about, being that we're 21 days away from the election and what's been happening out there. I wanted to kind of present it something because I think I'm right. I think I'm on point with something here. I really do. And, mainly because we're in very controversial times. As we literally right now have an absentee president. Nobody is talking about Joe Biden right now. I mean, all of this, let's go Biden, fuck you Biden, all that kind of stuff. Nobody's talking about the poor demented bastard anymore. And we have an absentee president, as we've had since really he took office. And we had to listen to all his, handlers, object to his, demented state and no, he's fine. And we don't see any evidence of it until obviously it was proven to be true shortly before and definitely after the debate with Trump. Now, Biden, as most people have taken a look at the data, have seen that he has taken the most days off of any previous president besides Obama. Barack Obama was like a living vacation. And we're going to get into old Barack Hussein Obama here in a minute. But, Biden, he calls it quits about 3 p.m. and he only works about 3 days a week. And, he's in the White House roughly less than half the week from what I understand. And he never travels much anymore, if at all anymore. We all know that he's in a declining state, a very fast rate of his decline. Now the question is, who fills the gaps in his presidency? And I would say, obviously, it's his wife. Because I believe, like most people, that she is, a la akin to old Edith Wilson. Remember when Woodrow Wilson had his stroke? She had to work the pen and everything else. And I think that's what old Joe's wife is doing. And, I think, but she's more than that. I think she's a conduit. I really do. I think she's a pipeline, a conduit for him, for Biden in the twilight of his presidency. And when I say conduit, I mean she's that pipeline, that conduit to members of the Obama administration. And this is where I'm going with this. This is what I'm talking about as far as peekaboo president. Because on one hand, we have Biden's here, Biden's gone. And then we always have the little peekaboo president Obama that never really, besides the 4 years with Trump, never really left the White House. He was always in the back working his puppet strings with him and his husband, Michelle. And, I really think that she is. I really think she's a conduit to the members of the Obama administration. The Obamas, specifically Barack, play a very, very prominent role. And this Obama team is absorbed by the Harris campaign. We've already seen evidence of that. So we get the impression, at least I do, that Kamala Harris is working with Barack Obama. And between the two, they have, think about this. This is what's scary. And this is kind of what I talked about previously as far as, everything going on behind the curtains and the cabal on previous shows. And I kind of had an epiphany last night. No, I'm not talking about a black stripper. But what I mean as far as Obama being ensconced into the Harris campaign is if you think about it, when I say that, Obama team is absorbed by the Harris campaign, she and him both have the veto power, the selection power of all the appointments to the judiciary, etc., and major initiatives. So let's think about that right now. With Jill Biden acting as Mrs. Wilson and Joe Biden drooling in his pudding, it's really Harris and Obama working the puppet strings. And the thing is, to me, that would explain why this administration has not given any unequivocal support to Israel, for example, and what seems to bother a lot of people about the fact that they're just plain ignoring the plight of Israel. Like I said before, we have the North Carolina hurricanes. People are suffering. People are dying. FEMA's not giving out aid, and she's going to give $385 million to fucking people in Lebanon. But I'm one of those people that is very bothered by all this, and all of that comes from the Obama era, that type of tactic, that type of thing. And I'm going to explain what it is, because and I'm going to explain what I mean by that, the Obama era, here in a minute. And it explains this very strange attitude that they have about Iran. I'm going to walk you guys a little bit backwards now in history, and remember the old Barack Hussein Obama, our first half-white president, about what he was all about then. But it explains a lot in their attitude towards Iran. They want to get back to the Iran deal. This was a big Obama hard-on topic and initiative back during his presidency. They want to give Iran $100 billion in relief from oil sanctions. They paid about $6 billion to hostages from South Korea. They took off the terrorist designation of the Houthis, and restored money that was basically, able to be given to Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. All of these appeasement strategies and these elbow nudge strategies that was part of the Obama presidency, particularly the second half of his presidency. And as I said, if you really think about it, it has all the hallmarks of the Obama foreign policy. He further dismissed the Islamic State, if you remember that, ISIS, as the JV team while he was president. And within a few years, they evoked from relative obscurity, they evolved, and here they were, to the world's most brutal terrorist network. Or that, think about this, China at the time continued through his presidency to expand its presence in the South China Sea, where they halted under Trump, I'd like to say, and restarted with Biden. You guys remember all of that, standoff in the waters around Japan that all happened there? The Japanese Navy, the American Navy standing off with the Chinese. Yeah, the dinks are know who they're playing with, and they know that it's an empty vessel in the White House right now. And that's why I say, and I've said it before, I think elections, I think in this particular election, will keep, if Camel Toe Harris gets the presidency, it'll keep Barack Obama as a puppeteer in the White House, as I said, should Kamala Harris be elected. And this is why elections have consequences. This is why we have to understand who and what is really behind the curtain here. And sure, I get it. It's the State Department too, and we're going to get to them in another show. But for right now, the big puppeteer that was around, that wants his time in the sun back is old Barack. And think about it. Barack was probably one of our worst presidents. He really was. We had Benghazi. We had the IRS versus the Tea Party saga. We had the Solyndra deal, where are all I would say evidence that Barack Obama was not the immaculate president his supporters made him out to be, and that's just the bottom line. To Democrats and their allies in the legacy media, former President Barack Obama was calm, cool, and collected during his tenure. But you and I don't agree with that because we see all the veneer of that. We know what the bullshit of the leftist media really is. And I would consider him one of the worst presidents ever. Maybe the worst ever, I would say. To start with, he was and is very condescending and arrogant. He didn't give a shit about the middle class. He splintered the country in two and left many ordinary Americans not part of his elitist coalition and left them completely out of all of his plans. This was the type of dirtbag that our half-white president really was. He campaigned as a uniter, as a moderate, but governed as a divider and a leftist. Look what he did with the borders. There were also several scandals that bruised the country. And really, I like how the mainstream media brushes it, under the rug and doesn't talk about it anymore. But every now and again, you hear about fucking Nixon and Watergate. Who gives a shit about that old dead bastard and Watergate? That wasn't really that big of a fucking deal to begin with. But allow me to remind you of some of the most terrible aspects of the Obama presidency. Shall we start with one of my personal favorites on this shitbag's legacy? The Benghazi attacks. The worst event in the Obama presidency was Benghazi tragedy. You heard me talk about it before when I talked about old Hillary Rottencrotch Clinton when she was Secretary of Defense. This happened on September 11th, 2012, at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya. Members of a terrorist group of, I think it was the Ansar al-Sharia, attacked the diplomatic compound in the pre-planned coordinated raid that killed Ambassador to Libya, Christopher Stevens. Also killed a State Department worker named Sean Smith. But think about this. Think about if this was under Trump's watch, that a gay ambassador, a gay man, was killed by Islamic terrorists. Who, let me tell you something. All you people gays for Palestine, you guys are going to find out real quick if these people take over what gravity off a building fucking feels like. Let me tell you something. But yeah, could you imagine if this happened under a Republican president where, Christopher Stevens, a gay man, was killed in such a terrible way and it was under his watch? No, but, we don't say anything while it's, Barack Hussein Obama. Or how about this one? How about when this asshole weaponized the IRS against Tea Party groups? Remember that one? That was a hoot. This, I would say, is probably the second most damaging scandal of Obama's presidency, was when the IRS, and all their efforts was to deny nonprofit tax designations to right-leaning groups who were part of the Tea Party movement against the president. The IRS looked at the political themes that were considered anti-Obama in tax-exempt applications and purposely delayed or denied from the tax exemption, and even went as far as to raid some of their offices. So he weaponized the United States government against its citizenry. And don't forget, too, the Solyndra bankruptcy. That little thing that, he and his husband, Michelle, had their thumbs in. I would say that was probably up there, too, was the Solyndra scandal. Solyndra was a green energy company in California that made solar panels. Solyndra was a product of an Obama administration efforts to promote renewable energy projects. Now, you heard my last couple shows ago when I talked about the bullshit of renewables. But this is back in 2009. The Obama's Department of Energy gave Solyndra $535 million in loan guarantees. The company later went bankrupt in 2011, and the Energy Department took a huge loss. This cost literally the U.S. taxpayers over $500 million. The FBI and the Department of Treasury investigated the company's founders for wasteful spending. Nothing really much came of that I'm aware of. But Solyndra was also probed for misstating its finances on its loan application to get favorable terms and the possibility that it may have conducted accounting fraud. The whole thing was a fucking shell game and a sham. And, Barack and his husband were at the forefront of it. And, I'll say this right now. These three cases, and that's just the tip of the iceberg here, folks, but these three case studies are major cautionary tales in American presidential history. They show that the Obama administration could be incompetent, dishonest, corrupt, and willing to punish its political rivals through the weaponization of the government. Obama's allies in the media made excuses for the administration in an effort to keep the president in a positive light. But here's the thing. The scandals are evidence that Obama was not as successful as his proponents make him seem. But then again, what fucking Democrat has been worth a shit that you can recall? I mean, Carter sucked. FDR sucked. I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for the Japanese bombing us, FDR would have been wheeled out of on his ass long before he croaked in the White House. Any rate, so Benghazi, the IRS versus the Tea Party, supporting terrorist groups, the Solyndra, those are all evidence that Barack Obama was not the immaculate president his supporters made him out to be. End of story. He's a piece of shit, was a piece of shit, is a piece of shit. And here's the thing. How does a government service person, when they leave office, not when they do all their public service talking, all that kind of stuff, all of their multi-million-dollar dinners, how do they have like 5 or 6 homes across and like really plush areas? Interesting. So really, I know that he's behind a lot of this. I know that he's pulling a lot of the strings and guiding a lot of the things that Kamala Harris is trying to do. And this is why this election is also to keep Barack Hussein Obama out of the White House. We can't have him around again at all in any type or fashion. So this is the warning. This is why I say, elections matter. Elections have consequences. And we have to make sure that we're diligent and that we do not rest on our laurels, because this guy's a bum. The current crop of Democrats are bums. And, heels up Harris, she's a fucking bum. And we got to keep them out. We'll see you at the polls in 21 days, folks. Hope you guys are there, and let's clean house. So, hey, don't forget to please like and subscribe and hit the bell button to continue being part of the Lefty G experience. And remember, guys, peace through strength. Love all you. Bye.